guys? Welcome along to episode 20 of the Let's Talk Boxing podcast. We know the ritual by now. I'm your host, Luke SimBoxx. He's Jermaine. Welcome along to episode 20, and what a busy episode it promises to be, with a great weekend of action behind us and a very exciting weekend of action to come. Jermaine, first and foremost, how are you, my friend?
Yeah, man, I'm good. I'm great. Looking forward to another episode, cracking them on, wheeling them out now, and yeah, got a really good weekend to look forward to. I'm really excited to get to dig into the upcoming card and obviously talk about the weekend's action just gone as well.
Yeah, so we'll start in some sort of chronological order. So we'll start on Friday. We had action over in Ireland, in Belfast, and it turned out to be the end of the line for Michael Conlon in what was a bit of a damp squib, if we're being honest, with the way he come into the sport of boxing with Conor McGregor on the ring walk, so 7, 8, 9 years ago in New York, and the whole controversy of the Olympics, of course, when he was denied a victory there, and yeah, the career's not really panned out the way he wanted for Michael Conlon, has it? And Friday night, I thought, encapsulated that a disappointing points defeat to Kevin Walsh. Before we touch on the career of Michael Conlon, we'll talk about the fight. And do you agree with the scorecards? I think, in my opinion, the fight was that poor that I didn't really care which way it went. I did think Michael Conlon had won, but I'm not
So,
screaming robbery. It was a bit of an anticlimax, to say the least, wasn't it?
yeah, it weren't a great fight. It really wasn't great, and I did think Conlan won. I thought he won, but it wasn't a great fight, and yeah, a bit of a shame, like you said, a bit of a damp squid on his career, and I don't know really. Like, obviously, it's the end of the line for him, but it's been a bit of a shame. And I think what the real shame of it is he's giving up. But in reality, if you speak to quite a lot of people in the industry, that everyone thought he won the fight. Um, but on that performance, does he go on to become a world champion? Probably not. And that's probably what you got to look at as well. Not just a case of, was it what, like you said, it weren't really a robbery, was it? But in most people's eyes, he did win.
Yeah, I think if he's admitting it himself when everyone's trying to, scream robbery, when he's saying it doesn't really matter, I wasn't good enough, I think that's very telling. He wasn't screaming rematch or bullshit or whatever, like he's been hard done by in the past. There was none of that. It was like the fire had gone. And I dare say, even if he'd won and he got the decision on Friday, barring a big payday against the world champion, he might have still sat there in the changing rooms afterwards and gone, no disrespect to Kevin Walsh, by the way, he's picked up a career best victory, and he'll get some big opportunities off the back of that, because Michael Conlon is still the name. But I still think Michael Conlon, on the back of that performance, would have sat there and gone, nah, it's not there, because he failed to engage. He just seemed apprehensive, and the most baffling thing for me, and I'm not sure if you picked up on it as well, he kept switching to orthodox, but he was commanding the fight in Southpaw. I swear, if he'd stayed in Southpaw for the entirety of that fight, it wouldn't have been a great watch, but he would have won at a canter. And that was my pre-fight prediction. I thought he was going to make it easier. Kevin Walsh had somewhat of a puncher's chance, but Michael Collins kept putting himself in danger by switching to orthodox, which was opening the door to Kevin Walsh to jump in with his slight flurries, because he wasn't too much by the way of wanting to engage and make it a much better watch.
Mm.
So
Yeah, yeah.
the corner was screaming at Michael to stay in Southpaw. You're winning the fight in Southpaw. Like, from your point of view, you got a much more astute boxing mind than I have. What do you think that was with Michael Conlon not sticking to the Southpaw stance and making it easy for himself and kind of opening the door to Kevin Walsh? What did you see with that?
The only thing that I can think of really, there must have been something like a niggling problem that was making him want to switch really, because if you've been so effective in that southpaw stance, and then switching and you're putting yourself constantly into danger, it's either one of I was going to say it's either one of two things. We don't know because we're not Michael Conlon, like, but the main obvious one for me would be there's some sort of injury, on that back foot, putting the weight on the back foot. It maybe is it's affected his movement, or he's struggling in that regard, so he's had to change it up. That's the only thing I could think of, or because he did fight quite apprehensively, as if he was a bit worried about what was maybe coming back in the southpaw stance. But then don't really make sense that, because switching over to the orthodox is where he got hit more. So I don't know really. The only thing I can think of really, if there was an injury, but you thought he probably would have said that to his corner at the same time, unless he was just showing face.
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of his career, I'm sure the one that will always stick out to him was that fight with Lee Wood. He was ever so dominant early on in that fight, and then he was knocked out in the most dramatic of fashions. And I remember looking back at that fight in the build up, sorry, and thinking, this is Michael Conlon's fight to lose. You know, Lee Wood, as he always is the banger in the fight. He's the big puncher. But Michael Conlon now, undefeated, fresh, had all the confidence in the world, and everything was going his way. He dropped Lee Wood heavy, and then, like I say, he gets knocked out dramatically in the last round, and he never really recovered from that, did he? He had the loss to Lopez, and then he was stopped by Jordan Gill, and I love Jordan Gill. I think he's a great guy. We've had him on the channel a couple of times, but Michael Conlon was a heavy favourite in that. That was somewhat of a comeback fight for him. He lost that, and now you kind of see the crowd on Saturday as well was a big on Friday, sorry, was a big tell because there wasn't a lot of people there, and Mike Conlon seemed to always demand a big crowd. He seemed like a big fight night kind of guy, a big fight night kind of fighter, and that just wasn't there. The crowd was sparse, and when the cameras panned around and you seen footage on social media where the fans are videoing the stands, and you think from those days of Lee Wood to this being the sorry end to his career, he's always going to look back at that Lee Wood fight and think, what if?
Yeah, 100%. That was the big changing point for his career, though, wasn't it? Really, in reality, and I think more so the manner in which he got stopped in that Lee Wood fight. He was put through the ropes, and it was a very, very bad stoppage. And like you said, he just never recovered from it. Um, and he just got stopped a couple of times after that. And like you said, maybe that's the problem with boxing. The star power can go, and that's why I think some boxers are scared of losing the role if they're going to lose the star power, they're going to lose fans, and people aren't going to be interested. And in a way, that does happen in the sport. Like, and Michael Conlon's an example of that, of someone who was so highly regarded and so faithfully followed that racked up a few losses. And by rights, against some fighters, he probably shouldn't have lost against. Like, he shouldn't have lost the Lee Wood fight at the time. Shouldn't have lost against Jordan Gill, but he did. And then that makes people think, do you know what? Maybe he isn't good enough. And unfortunately, he stopped turning out to the party. And that was it was a bit sad to see that, considering how, like you said, how well followed he was. Like you said, when he was in at his debut at Madison Square Garden, there was a load of Irish fans there, all cheering him on. And yeah, it's the nature of the beast, unfortunately, with boxing.
It is, and we do wish Michael the best with his future endeavors. He's still young in terms of life terms. He's took a few hits and bumps on the road as a boxer. He's 34, but in terms of his life, he's got a young family. So yeah, we wish him the best moving forward. Saturday night at the Copper Box in London, Matchroom put on what I thought felt like a proper throwback card. We spoke about it last week, and it played out that way. I thought there was four solid fights on the main card, a lot of excitement, a lot of drama, a little bit of controversy. We'll start off with the main event. George Liddard, who's quickly becoming one of the next best things in British boxing. He's not a secret anymore. He's won that British title, stopping Kieran Conway. He's now defended it against a former European middleweight champion in Tyler Denny. And he had to come through some sticky spots in this fight. And when you're ticking the boxes as a prospect, as a young fighter coming through, you want the knockouts, you want the victories, but you want to, most of the time we're going to come on to later, you want to see that chin check. You want to see if you can go the rounds with a tough, gritty, durable opponent. And George Liddard done that against Tyler Denny. He was game as ever. I think Tyler Denny deserves a lot of respect. That one stoppage win on his record in 24 wins screams non-puncher, but he clearly punches hard enough to gain respect to these opponents, and he came up just short. But for George Liddard, what a win, what a performance, and ticks a lot of boxes moving forward for me, Jamie.
I think it was a really coming of age fight for him, and we said that last week, didn't we? This was going to be one of them fights where he was going to get tested and how he came through it, and he had to come through it because he put so much into them the first 4 or 5 rounds that he let Tyler Denny get back into the fight, and I think that's where it was such a good learning fight for him, because now he can go away and realize, what he has to, maybe change a few things up. He'll learn a lot from that fight, and I think that, maybe managing his stamina, and maybe, like you said, everyone wants their knockouts, but just reeling it back in, maturing a bit more. And that fight will mature him a lot as a fighter, because, yeah, like you said, there was some sticky patches in it. But, he came through, and like you said, it ticked more or less every box that was out there to be ticked for him. And I think now's there's time for him to step up another level, and then maybe start fighting some people on the fringe of the world.
Yeah, absolutely. You know what? Actually, I'll pick up on that there because I think they mentioned that they want him to win the British title outright, and I think that's not a bad achievement. The middleweight landscape is wide open. We've got Denzel Bentley fighting for a interim world title on the back of Janibek's drug suspension. The IBF have stripped Janibek, so that's vacant. Carlos Adames, another fight we're going to get onto. He's a WBC world champion. I think is it Alexander Lara's still there or thereabouts with a WBA title, I think. So it's wide open, but I also think for George Liddard at 23, yes, step up in levels, but maybe step up the domestic levels. I don't think there'd be anything wrong with going back to the copper box with similar fighters to what was on the undercard. There was talk of Liam Smith, Beefy Smith. Do you think that's a fight for George
I don't
Liddard?
mind that. Do you know when I saw it was rumored and stuff? I actually didn't mind it because that's the next step up for him. When I say like fringe world level, is you're fighting somebody that's been there, has been a world champion, and was a world level fighter, and is now unfortunately below that, just because obviously father time waits for no man in boxing. But that's a really good fight for him. He's up against a very experienced pro who's been there and done it, and that's his next. That is 100% the next step. And that one I'm not totally not against, and I loved it 100% before that.
I think for me, if I was matchmaking, we're playing fantasy here, I'd stick him in with a fighter off the card this weekend because obviously Matchroom and Queensbury are all buddies now and these fights can happen. But you see, like Shaquille Thompson against Brad Pauls, the winner of that would be a great fight. And you've also got Nathan Heaney against Jerome Warburton. The winner of that would be a great fight for him. You got the fight on the Scottish card on the Nathaniel Collins undercard with his Aston Brown, the Scottish guy. He's shouting for a fight with George Liddard. So I think there's the potential to have some proper domestic dust ups. And if you've got a tidy little venue like the copper box, you can fill out, 5, 6, 7,000, which is good for these level shows.
Yeah,
I mean, that mix, and I dare say, take one of those, then go on to Liam Smith, because even though Liam Smith was disappointing the McKenna defeat, I still think there's a fighter in Liam Smith, and I don't think he's quite ready for the scrap heap just yet. And I think get him in one more fight before then with a Nathan Heaney if he beats Jerome or a Shaquille Thompson and Brad Paul's winner, something like that.
I think out of the ones you mentioned there, I think Brad Pauls would stand out the most for me. I
You
think
think
that would probably be the most standout
You
choice.
know what?
Yeah, yeah.
It was on the tip of my tongue then to go Brad Pauls or Shaquille Thompson this weekend, but we'll save that because we're going to talk about that on the preview. Jimmy Sains was on the card as well on Saturday. He was in a tough fight with Derek Azaze, who George Liddard has beat. They're in the same camp. It gets a bit interesting when it's like that, isn't it? Because these guys have known each other for a long time. Jimmy Sains and George Liddard. He's defended his English title. Naturally, he's going to start looking at the British. If George is sticking around, he's not going to want to vacate that belt. Jimmy Sains is going to want a challenge for it. The same trainer, known each other since the amateurs and before then, since they was kids. Gets a bit sticky like that, Jamie, doesn't it? It causes a bit of friction.
Yeah, I wouldn't want to be in one of their shoes if the British board turned around and ordered a mandatory defence for him. I wouldn't want to be in that camp. But I don't know how to play because obviously you got some where it's friends, like friends only, they wouldn't fight. But then if you want to fight, if you want to be the best, you've got to fight the best. And unfortunately, the best is your best friend. You can't have a knuckle up with your best friend, haven't you?
Yeah, I think the one good thing, if you want to see it as a good thing, was the fact that Jimmy Sains didn't look spectacular on Saturday. Whether he wasn't at the races or whether it was the experience and the awkwardness of Derek Azaze that put him in that spot, I'm not quite sure. But the fact that he didn't look spectacular, I think, will put the bumpers on him a little bit. That might set him back a couple of fights. They might think, you know what, let's go back to the drawing board. Let's work on a couple of things and go again before looking at the British title. So that might give him a bit of a time
Yeah, a
to
bit
work
more of a
with.
time frame because, like you said, I think you even pointed to you think that he didn't win the fight, didn't you?
Yeah.
So definitely it'd be taking a step back and, like you said, maybe one or two more fights at that level before you start going for the British title. But that was probably going to do him the world of good because unfortunately he's not beating George Liddard anytime soon. Even if they are, good mates, and he might disagree with me.
You know, I did enjoy the fight that opened the card on DAZN on Saturday with Leli Buttigieg stopping Jake Goodwin. This fight had it all. This was the undefeated prospect in Buttigieg and Jake Goodwin, who's a young man himself, but got a couple of losses on the record. And it was a barnstormer. And there was the drama of the gum shield falling out numerous times for Leli Buttigieg. He had a couple of points, took off for that, and he's going into the ninth round of a 10-round contest thinking, at best I'm level. I'm potentially a round or two down, and he pulls out a brutal knockout, man. I was really impressed with Leli there.
Yeah, that stoppage was brilliant, weren't it? It was one of them where just a punch perfect left hook right on the button, and it was at a time as well when the opponent was full of confidence. But he was just coming forward, just letting his hands go because unfortunately he was out on his feet at times, weren't he? And it was that's the reason the gum shield came out as many times as it did because he was just he was spent and didn't look like he said coming into that round. He was probably down more than he was up, and he was probably like in his head, he's like, I'm losing this. So I don't, I'm, but he stuck in there, and that's the main thing. Even when it looked like he had nothing to give, he stuck through it. He powered through, and he found that one punch shot that can change fights, and it changed it for him because, fortunately, he was on the way to bit of a bit of a bad loss because if it got carried on going the way it did, and he lost, I think his career would have been in a right sticky situation. So he found it and he pulled it out when he needed to.
Yeah, absolutely. Great fight. One fight we can't miss out is Giorgio Visioli with an utterly dominant points victory against Levi Giles. But I'm going to play devil's advocate, Jamie. As much as we're impressed with the boxing skills, the ability, the dominance, Giorgio Visioli, in my opinion, should be getting Levi Giles out of there. And full respect to Levi Giles, he's very, very tough. But those later rounds, 7, 8, 9, there was nothing coming back. It was a glorified sparring session. As a matter of fact, if that was a sparring session up at the People's Gym, Kernan would have got Levi out and said, you know what, we're done. We'll get somebody else in. It was glorified sparring at best, with all due respect. Giorgio, I thought, should have put his foot to the pedal to the floor, and really look to take his man out of there. Just saying. You can't find fault, but we're here to call a
No, of
spade a
course.
spade. You know what I mean? And for
Of
me, he
course.
should have got the stoppage there.
No, do you know what? You are right there. Obviously, it was a punch perfect performance, more or less, from Frisoli. It was levels and levels above Levi Giles, and I genuinely didn't think that. I thought Levi was going to cause him a few problems and was going to get we talk about people getting a chin checked. I thought that would have been a case in this fight, and from the minute the bell sounded till it ended, it was in total control, and that's probably why you're right. He should have got the stoppage because by rounds 4 or 5, there was only one winner. It was only going one way, and when he wanted to hit him and land, he did. And so really, that's where he probably should have stopped him. That's the only the only downfall he would have really in a spectacular performance is probably should have stopped him really a lot. Very early on, round 5, 6. I should have had him out of there by then. But great performance. I'm looking forward to seeing what he does next because he's really impressing me more and more. Like I had doubts about him, but he keeps slowly getting rid of them doubts for me, and I'm excited to see what he does because he showed a few things in that fight.
Yeah, absolutely. No,
When I
but
thought,
I think he's one of these fighters that he's going to burst through. I genuinely think, I'm not trying to play both sides of the fence here. We're just calling it out for what it is. I'm a massive Giorgio Visioli fan, and I think he's one of these guys that's going to burst through. And when he does, I think he's the potential to be a multi-weight world champion. Was he at 135 now? I think getting the British title next. And why we're saying with certain fighters like a George Liddard or a Jimmy Sains, keeping around a certain level, I think Giorgio Visioli is the type of fighter where the performance is going to come as he goes up the levels. People start exposing themselves more, the more willing to engage. I think that's where we'll see the best of Giorgio Visioli. So I don't want to take this as an opportunity to shit on him. If anything, I'm saying that the opposite, that I think he's that good that he should be stopping these guys,
yeah, yeah.
fast tracking through the levels, and he's a big lad. Like I say, you can see him growing into the weight, similar to like a Devin Haney, the way Devin Haney was at 135, 140, 147. I dare say Giorgio Visioli can follow in his footsteps, and if he has 5% of Devin Haney's success, then he's had a great career. But I really do think he's got the ability to go and win multiple world titles at multiple weights.
Yeah, no, I have to agree with that. He when we watch certain fighters, don't you? You just know, and he's one when you watch him against opponents like Levi. No disrespect to him, and he's making it that easy. You just know at this stage, like he has to be he has to be moved further on. Whereas you look at Liddard and Denny, it was still a tough fight for Liddard. Whereas if Liddard had done what Viziolia did to Denny, then we would all be sat here going, yeah, he's moving on, start getting into challenging for world titles. Whereas it's the total opposite, where he's that good. He needs to be in with people that are gonna come at him and set traps. Well, try to set traps and create openings. Whereas that creates openings for themselves, and I think we'll see the best of him, like you said, when he's in there against really talented operators.
Yeah, just having a look at the rankings here, just a couple of names to throw out there that you could see him in the mix with. Liam Dillon, if he sticks around, would be a good fight for him next. Gavin Gwynn would be a great fight for him next. And then you're looking at the very top of the domestic division with Louis O'Doherty, the British champion. These are all fights that Visioli could win, and these are the sort of fights where you can get him out every 10, 12 weeks because he's not taking any punishment. I think you could have a really
Yeah, yeah. I think you
exciting
could probably
British
get him
fight.
in. I think you could probably get him in with Doherty now. To be fair,
Yeah,
I think that's probably should be the next step.
absolutely. On the other side of the Atlantic, we had Carlos Adames getting another solid performance against Austin Amo Williams. He's blows hot and cold, Amo Williams, doesn't he? He can look really, really good, and then other times he can look slightly flat. And I think you called it on last week's podcast that you could just see Adames old man in him, and that's what it was in him. When he spanked him,
Yeah, he
he
was.
dropped
Yeah,
him in the second, and he was never really in any, there was flurries at times from Austin Hammer Williams. He's a proud fighter. He was going to go out on his shield if need be. He survived 12 rounds. He ultimately lost unanimously, but never really in the fight. And another one of them where you could say, if Adamas wanted to, he could have really put the shine on that performance with a stoppage. It didn't come. He won unanimously. And yeah, I was impressed with Adamas, I've got to say.
yeah. I'm all. You know, he keeps impressing me every time he gets in there, and like yeah, I called it. I just thought it was going to be too much for Ammo because I feel like what it is with Ammo, and I don't want to disrespect him, but I feel like when it gets to the big fights, the really big fights, I don't feel like I don't want to say he's not got it in him, but I feel like maybe within himself he maybe feels like he's maybe not good enough to be in there with him because he sort of starts the fight. It's like he's not good enough. Do you know when you watch his body language and stuff? It's like, well, ooh, should I really be in here with this fighter? But then even in the moments he was losing, when he had like you said, he had his flurries and his combinations. He's a really good fighter.
Yeah.
He's got world class ability, but there's just something where I think mentally he's lacking something mentally.
I think it's quite funny you should say that because I noticed it in there's certain fighters and maybe naturally they can't hide it, but some fighters they don't have the game face. Daniel Dubois is another one. We see if Fabio Wardley lands on his chin in the second or third round, he'll have that glazed look of oh fuck what.
Oh yeah,
And Austin has that same. He done it with Hamza Shiraz. He done it with Adames. You've got other fighters like Derek Chisora, for example. He looks knackered after 2 rounds. He looks like he's ready to go at any point from the end of the second. But he's going to be there for the 12 rounds unless you hammer him to the canvas. Tyson Fury, another one. He's got the strongest game face. He was getting battered in that ninth round against Usyk. Comes out and he wins one of the last 3 or 4 rounds. And the same with the trilogy with Wilder. We've seen how many times he's troubled there. But his game face is unbelievable. Austin Hammer Williams doesn't have that. He looks shocked every time you hit him and you hit him good. He doesn't have any game face. He doesn't know how to hold it or to hide it.
yeah. No, and that's what I think. It's just that little mental side of the game where he's just lacking on that side because he's got all the ability. And there was moments where he troubled Adamas, never to the point where he looked like he was going to hurt him, but had he had boxed like that for the 12 rounds, probably could have snuck away with a decision victory. But there was just something there mentally. Whereas, like same with Hamza, where he's just in there with someone maybe he doesn't feel like he can beat, and he just like he said, yeah, he looks shocked when he gets hit hard and thingy. He just looks a bit like I don't really know what to do here, which is a shame because he's a really talented fighter. But hats off to Adamas because he just keeps turning up and getting the wins, and he's slowly getting more recognition now, isn't he?
Absolutely. You know what? We'll go off on a bit of a random one here because we've said about keeping George Liddard at domestic level. But just on the off chance, I heard Eddie say in a press conference or maybe on an interview somewhere that if Austin Emma Williams had won, then some way they might have made the Williams Liddard fight next. Obviously, he's not won, but Liddard has won. If we're pushing Liddard beyond British level, contradict ourselves a little bit here because I said before keep him there. But if he was to fight Emma Williams next, who would you pick in that fight?
I think I'm Williams.
Would you?
Yeah, sorry, sorry, George.
But,
No, I
but
think
maybe
just
that's
at this
that. But that
stage,
goes in line with what you were saying about maybe when Austin
yeah,
goes up one too many levels, he gets found out, almost like bullying the bully. That he
yeah,
comes down a couple of levels. Like I think it's a 50-50 fight. I really do. But it goes in line with what you were saying there. Yes, that makes a lot of
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I think it's one of them where Liddard could probably pull it off, But I think that what Liddard lacks is a little bit of experience, which I wouldn't want to say Tyler exposed. He didn't really expose anything, but he just showed that there was moments where he just lacked a little bit of maturity in the ring, and I think that's why I would probably go with Amor Williams. But I can certainly see why people would think it was a 50-50 and why it wouldn't be a bad fight to make because it's one where Liddard could probably get a victory in and really throw him up there. But again, that contradicts what we were saying. So we'll scoot that one over there.
Yeah. Right, let's look forward and what a show we have to look forward to. This Magnificent Seven concept from Queensbury is one of my favourite things as a boxing fan. We have so much to complain about and to moan about, and God knows we love to do that on the Let's Stop Boxing podcast when the moment takes us. But we can also celebrate the good stuff. And these cards, man, from top to bottom, you're talking from Michael Gomez Jr. against Jordan Flynn, Alex Murphy against Josh Holmes, all the way through up to Moses Itauma in his toughest fight yet on paper against Jermaine Franklin. Jamie, talk to me, man. And it's in Manchester. And it's in
Yeah,
Manchester.
man, isn't it? It's in the city of boxing, man. I'm absolutely buzzing for it. I was buzzing for it when it came out. And there's one thing that you usually get is sometimes you'll get a really good main event. Sometimes they'll have a good call and then they'll fill out the undercard with some fights where usually it's like, yeah, you know who's going to win. You know who's going to win. Whereas there's a lot of good 50-50 domestic fights where it's like even Nathan Heaney, Jerome Warburton. Even that one, I can't really pick who's going to win that. Can't pick it. I can't pick out of Alex Murphy and Josh Holmes. Um, Even Michael Gomez and Flynn. You know, you'd expect everybody to back Michael Gomez Jr., but even that one on the back of the last couple of performances, I don't know who's going to win that one, and that's what I'm really excited for. Forget the main event. This could have been a fight card all by itself, and still would have sold well at the Co-op Live
Well, you know
because
what?
every
That was
single fight on there is a fantastic fight.
that was the argument I was having with Alex Murphy. An interview that I'll be dropping shortly on the YouTube channel is when it was postponed back in January, which I was gutted about, doubly gutted as well because there's small asterisks that I'm going to put of disappointment on Saturday night. I'm actually at work, Stu, so I'm not going to be able to watch the event live unless I stick it on my mobile. But that's another conversation. Back when the first show was postponed because of the injury to Moses Itauma, I thought you could get another mid-level British European title kind of level fight in there and go ahead with the show. Alex Murphy sells tickets. Nathan Heaney sells a bucket load of tickets. And you've got Ezra Taylor and Willie Hutchinson. You know, I thought the Magnificent Seven could become a Magnificent Six with an added fight. You know, I thought it's that kind of card, and I'm really, really excited for it. And you're saying you can't pick a winner for each fight, but that is something we're going to do at some point in this podcast. We are going to have to pick our winners.
I'll get off the fence. Don't worry, I'll get off the fence. But that's just how good it is. There's arguments for all fighters across all fights, probably minus the Itauma fight. I think everyone's going to back Itauma on that one, even though it is a tough fight for him.
You
But
know,
yeah, man.
I don't know why we're not banging the drum more that these promoters don't put these kind of shows on more often because as much as we're saying these guys are ticket sellers, Nathan Heaney, a former British champion, but other than that, I think, you know, looking at Box Track as we're talking, I can't see a former world champion on here. You know, there's a few British and European and that kind of
Yeah,
level.
that's
So they're not mega purses. So there's no excuses not to put these kind of events on more often. You know, we're treated to them and we buzz off them like a Magnificent Seven. This should become the norm. You know, these are good
yeah.
domestic European level fights, 50-50 dust ups, no megastars on them. Most of the time, have been the exception of being a future megastar. Of that, there's no doubt. But yeah, let's get these shows on every month. You know, we're not saying it's going to be every weekend, of course, but let's get one a month.
Yeah. Between the
Week,
different promoters, there's enough promoters now where that could easily be done. And I think you know what we'll find. I think now that Turkey's gone off to do his thing, and Frank and Eddie are sort of by the wayside now. I think we'll start seeing more of these big cars like we used to do back in the day. Like we used to have some great cars full of 50-50 British fights, and I think we'll start getting that back again. Whereas not going over to Saudi and having them fights over there. So fingers crossed with everything that's happening with Zoo for boxing, it might actually open up the doors to some more Magnificent Seven cards across Queensbury, Matchroom, Boxer, if he's still going to be knocking about. I don't know what's happening with Boxer at the minute, but you know, and even Zuffa putting on 5 UK boxing shows. Let's see if they can get some really good British domestic dust ups going. But do they know much about the market, the British boxing market? That's one to be seen.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll rattle through the 7 fights. We'll give our predictions. A lot of platforms don't like giving predictions because they don't want to upset people, but we're giving our predictions. We're boxing fans. We're not doing it maliciously. We're just looking at it as a sporting aspect, and we will always share our thoughts and back them up. So we'll start with Alex Murphy, Josh Holmes, two great pros, two great guys in what is an utterly 50-50 fight. I think it's an eliminator of some sort as well, down at 135. Alex, with those couple of losses on his record when he stepped up with Akif Fiaz and can't think who was the lad that he used to box at Khalil Majid. He used to fight at Kieran's gym. He lost to Khalil as well. Josh Holmes undefeated, former English champion. Where are you sitting on this one, Jamie?
I think it's a really good 50-50 fight. I think it's one that Alex can cause Josh so many problems, but I'm gonna just nudge more towards Josh on this one. Even though I feel like I should go to Alex because of, you know, all the interviews he does and stuff like that. I can't be biased, and no, don't leave us, Alex. Keep giving us interviews, but I feel like Josh might just nick this one.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Alex, but with the very same reasons as you. This is literally a 51-49 split either way. I'm gonna go with Alex just with having, even though in losing efforts, that he's got this big fight night experience over Josh Holmes, who's not fought on this level yet. I could be proven wrong, but I'll go Alex on points. Michael Gomez Jr. against Jordan Flynn. I'm going to back Michael Gomez here. I think he's a hungry fighter, and on his day he can be very very good. And he sometimes gets found out against heavy-handed opponents. I'm not sure Jordan Flynn is that heavy-handed to cause him too many problems, so I'm going to side with Gomez Jr. on points here, Jamie.
I'm probably going to have to agree with you on that one as well. I think, yeah. But it depends as well because, if we've seen, like you said, there's been moments where Gomez has sort of fell apart, as best to say it without being disrespectful. But I'd like to think this is one where, because like you said, on his day, he's a very good fighter. And I think it's one again, yeah, he's probably just going to nick this one as well.
The next fight is a guy we know quite well through the People's Gym and working with Kieran, Jerome Warburton, taking on former British middleweight champion Nathan Heaney. This is a cracking fight and a crossroads fight because for either man, a loss here, the rebuild process is going to be enormous. And maybe with Jerome being a couple of years younger, he might have time on his side, but this is must win. And I think Nathan Heaney is going to have just a little bit too much experience for Jerome Warburton at this stage.
I think that's literally the only difference in this fight is going to be the experience of Nathan Heaney. But what because obviously Warburton's at that point in his career, he's had a couple of stepped up a couple of times and just fell short. And if he wants to go on and fight for British titles and become a British champion, he's got to beat people like Nathan Heaney, who is unfortunately on the come down. But Nathan's just gonna probably just have a bit too much for him, and I probably feel like he could get a late stoppage, Heaney, in this fight. I think that's the way it could go. But if Warburton turns around and upsets it, I'll be buzzing for him.
You know what? I think if we was to title this podcast, we'll call it 50-50 because that's all we keep saying. But Shaquille Thompson against Brad Pauls. Brad Pauls been there, done it. British champion with a great win over Nathan Heaney and stopping him in that fight. Shaquille Thompson, there's a lot of hype around him with Kevin Murray. He's been backed on the small hall. He's getting these opportunities now on the big stage, and I think this is a good opportunity for Shaquille Thompson to put his name on the lips of your casual boxing fans, and I think he'll get the job done here on points. But Brad Pauls, what a pro, what a fighter, what a guy. Great servant to the sport, but another great fight. But yeah, I'm gonna edge slightly to Shaquille Thompson there.
I'm gonna get hate out of being a Manchester lad. I'm gonna get loads of hate, but unfortunately, I think Brad Pauls will just have a little bit too much more about him, um, and I think he'll win. And I think the scorecards will look quite comfortable, but there'll be moments in the fight where it's very uncomfortable for Rad.
You know what? I think
That's what I'm going to go
we're gonna
for.
have to get these predictions down on text somewhere, and we'll have a bit of a charity bet for this. I think it'll be a good laugh. You know what? We will actually. We'll do a tenner on it. We'll work out a point system. Something I was going to
Yeah.
mention on the channel, but I'm doing that skydive art. I'm jumping out the plane for the Christian charity, which is a great charity. I'll be doing that in May. So I think we'll put a tenner up, and whoever gets the least points can chuck a tenner into my charity cause.
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, wicked. So we'll move on to probably the only fight on the card that's got a bit of bad blood there. We've seen them clash at ringside before now, and this is a fight that really does need to happen. It's Ezra Taylor taking on Willie Hutchinson. Jamie, this is a cracking fight, man.
This is a belt off. This is going to be. I think this is going to be a stand and bang kind of fight. I think there's going to be not a lot of boxing technique thrown into the mix here, and I think we're going to have two geezers just going to go out and prove who's the harder man. And I'm all for it. And this is I genuinely can't pick it because I think if they go out and stand and bang, it's anyone's fight to win. I think if they boxed, I think Willie Hutchinson would probably have a little bit too much experience and would win in a boxing contest, but I think there's so much bad blood that they're gonna go in and they're not gonna listen to the coaches. There's gonna be no game plan. They're gonna be sat on each other's chest and they're just gonna go all guns blazing. And I am all there for that.
Right, but if we're doing a prediction and we're doing a point system for this charity bet, you can't sit on the fence here.
You're a bastard because this is the one fight I do really want to do a prediction on.
Well, I'll go. I'm
But I'll
going to
tell
go
you what,
Willie
I'm
Hutchinson.
gonna throw one out there. Hutchinson stoppage.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm going Hutchinson on points, but yeah, I think it's a cracking fight. And again, as I will with all my predictions, I wouldn't be surprised if it goes the opposite way. I generally wouldn't, and that's not me hedging my bets. It's just because of how close it
No,
is.
I think this is one of them cards where all the fights could go either way. Genuinely
Yeah.
could.
This was the one disappointment when the fight card fell apart in January. The worry was that what if there's another injury, and obviously Akib Fiaz pulled out the Jordan Flynn fight. Michael Gomez stepped in, so that was a good replacement. Liam Davis against Zach Miller, I thought was a fantastic matchup. You know, Zach Miller from just down the road in Ancoats here in Manchester. It was unfortunate that he had to pull out the fight, and Francisco Grandelli stepped in. Experienced campaigner, but Liam Davis, again, on his day, can look very, very good. And I think if there's one surefire bet on the night, I think it'd be Liam Davis to win. And yeah, I'm going to back him to get a late stoppage there.
Yeah, no, I'd have to agree. I think the fight with Zach Miller would have been a lot more better and exciting. But you can only fight what's in front of you, can't you? And he's managed to stay on the card. He's getting paid, and he's got an opponent there. Yeah, it's durable, but it's one where he should get the win. And I'll probably go for the points decision for Davis on that one.
And the main event, what more can be said about Moser Itauma at this stage of his career that's not already been said? Demolishing Dillian White inside a round. Jermaine Franklin, the opponent who's looked at as maybe the guy that'll take him a few rounds. I'm not sure if I've seen many people pick Jermaine Franklin to win, but he's touted as being the guy that'll go maybe 4, 5, 6, 7 rounds ultimately. He, of course, is full of confidence. He's thinking he's coming in, he's upsetting the apple cart. The one thing I'm going to chuck out, Jamie, and this is something I've been thinking about recently when I've been thinking about this main event. Jermaine Franklin, he had a good win out last time, but other than that, he's dining out on two competitive losses to Anthony Joshua and Dillian White. You know, we're celebrating valiant efforts, and that's not going to be enough against most of the time.
No, I think that's what people are forgetting as well. He as great as good as a performance he put against them two fighters in Dillian White and AJ. He didn't win him. He didn't win him. And the crazy thing was, he probably had a better performance against AJ than he did against Dillian White. And Dillian White's was absolutely blown away by Moses Itauma. I think obviously he's a bit younger, so he's younger than White, so he's got the age on his side, Franklin. But like you said, he's dined out on them to send two fights, but they were both losses. And he's not really gone on to have any fights where you go, wow, that Jermaine, do you know what? I know he lost, but we were underestimating him. I don't think you've got that, and it's a very smart move from Team Itauma to pick that fight because he's remembered as the guy who who went the distance with AJ, didn't he?
Yeah, he
Yeah,
went
he
for the
went the
distance
distance with
both.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah, he went the distance with both, and gave a good account of himself. So if Moses goes out and blows him away, it's a great marketing tool, isn't it? And I think that's probably what's going to happen. I think he'll be durable enough till about round six. I think if it goes past round six, I'll be shocked.
Yeah, I think personally, unless they Moses is under strict instructions, not that you're going to hold a fighter up, but if he's under strict instructions to be like, you know what, take your time, we need to work on A, B, and C. Let's go
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 rounds. But I don't think Moses is that kind of guy. Anyway, I think he smells blood. He's like a great white shark, and he'll come in and he'll go for the kill. I genuinely think he blows Jermaine Franklin away inside 3 rounds. I think this kid's so fast, so athletic, so powerful. The best laid plans for survival could be laid, and he's going to blow him out of the water. I think I dare say the only guy that I'd back against him He's been underdog against some fighters, but probably the only two that I'd make him an underdog against is Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. I think he starts
Yeah, yeah.
50-50 or favourite against everybody else, including your Caballeros, including your Joseph Parkers, your Fabio Wardleys, your Daniel Dubois. He's a live fighter in all those fights. I just think Tyson Fury, with his awkward style and Usyk being the master boxer that he is, but that's going to change with time. Moza Itauma will take over, and I think it starts with Jermaine Franklin on Saturday. With all due respect to Jermaine Franklin, he's a solid pro, but I'm big on Moza Itauma. I always have been, and yeah, I see this inside 3 rounds, mate. As soon as Moza Itauma decides.
Yeah, I think there's no getting away from it. It's going to be destructive, and it's no disrespect there to Jermaine Franklin. He's just not not good enough to be up against someone like Itauma. And that's no disrespect because Itauma's going to go on to be such a force in the heavyweight division. But like I said, so young, athletic, strong, powerful. And unfortunately, yeah, Jermaine, it's just you're there for the you're there for the taking. Unfortunately, you're there to move Itauma on to the next level. And I'll be interested to see. Obviously, don't want to look too past it, but who he does go on to fight after this win because that's it. Now he's got to step up to that world level after this one.
Yeah, absolutely, and especially with him being towards the top of the rankings, I think we're not looking past Jermaine Franklin. As much as I give that prediction, we always show the fighters the respect that they deserve. But if we are looking for what's next, I think the one name that stands out for me is Filip Hrgovic. I think that's a great fight for Moses
Yeah,
Atama in late summer.
I think you could even see that could even end up being for a world title. Depending
Yeah.
on what happens with the belts. If they go up in the air. Um, what could be another one?
Well, he's talking Murat Gassiev, isn't he, with him having that regular title for knocking out Kubrat Pulev. Again, I think he'd walk
He'd
through. Gassiev's
walk
a
through.
dangerous fighter, man. Gassiev's a dangerous fighter. But
Yeah, he is, but I think
similar
he
to
walks through.
like the Mike Tyson comparison's always there, but your Anthony Joshua's these heavyweights when they're young, and they just ice people out. They just go in. They're not going in a box. They're going in to kill. Seek, kill, destroy, and that's what I see with Moses. And he reminds me of these young heavyweights when they come through and it's blasting through everybody. Um, yeah, I think Hrgovic, Gassiev, they're all there for the taking. I think there's
Yeah,
certain
he's small.
yeah, there's a step through like you got like your Lawrence Okoli fighting Tony Yoka and stuff. These guys are on their own path, and I think Cabial deserves a world title shot before, with all due respect, stepping back down a level because he's a level above Moles in terms of standing, not in terms of ability, but in terms of standing at the minute. He's on the verge of a world title fight. So I think there's like a plethora of fighters that are right there waiting to break through, and then there's some that are waiting. Then you've got Usyk at the top. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
got some
yeah.
sort of structure there. There's not a lot of structure in boxing, but people are all jostling for position. Sorry, on the back of what you said there, where you never know what's going to happen with these belts. At some point, they're going to have to get fragmented, and hopefully
Yeah,
these fights get made.
right. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, we look forward to Saturday night. Another big fight that takes place this weekend, and one that I'm quite intrigued by, weirdly, is Sebastian Fundora against Keith one-time Furman up at 154 pounds for the WBC Super Welterweight title. Can one time roll back the clock and pull out a big victory at this stage of his career against the Towering Inferno, the huge Sebastian Fundora?
Do you know what I'd like him to? Because I've always been a big Keith Thurman fan. Always been a big fan. I was a bit gutted when he lost to Manny Pacquiao. But no, I've always been a big fan. And his boxing brain is up there. He's got one of the best boxing IQs. And I just think though I know he's obviously he come back and he had his comeback win, but I think he's been out of the game for too long for this, especially for that high level. And don't take anything away from Fundora just because he's so tall and rangy, but he's got a really good boxing brain himself, and I think his length, his arms, his physicality, I think will just be a bit too much for Keith Thurman on the night. And I would like Thurman to win, but I just can't see it. I think Fundora's going to um, control the fight easily, but I think that's just literally age is going to be the factor in which he controls Thurman.
Yeah, I agree. I think, Father Time waits for no man, and Keith Herman with the inactivity and everything else, it's not worked in his favour. He's getting no younger. Sebastian Fundora, even though he has been stopped, I just don't think Keith Herman's going to be the guy to expose that again. And I think Fundora will win quite comfortably. Although I would like to see Keith Herman land a big right hand and just make the fight a bit more exciting, but I'm not quite sure that'll happen. I think Fundora, those long levers, even though he likes to get into a bit of a tussle, I think he'll control the fight and win comfortably on points. We look forward to that. Let's pick the bones of some boxing news before we close out. got to say, quite disappointed with John Fury this week and the comments made of Tyson Fury or about Tyson Fury. You know, let's not split hairs. I've never been the biggest fan of Tyson Fury out of the ring. In the ring, fantastic. You know, one of the very best of his generation and arguably of the past 10, 15, 25 years. Um, but for John Fury to come out, say that the relationship's completely destroyed, started mentioning money, started mentioning the training situation where he had some choice words to say about Sugar Hill. Yeah,
Yeah.
it didn't come across right for me. It felt a bit petulant, as if he's been told to take a back seat by Tyson, and he's thought, you know what, I'll go to the media and scream and shout about my son, which didn't, it didn't scream class, did it?
I didn't get it. I didn't understand it. It was all a bit. Well, I don't know where John's going with it. I think John's got to the point where he's so fame hungry. When he used to sit there and go, "Oh, I'm not bothered about the fame. I don't care about all these social media following." It's like, well, everything's for the camera now. And I feel like you're right. I feel like he's been playing so much up to the camera that like Fury's gone, look, Dad, like it's becoming a bit of a joke. This, like, I can't really have you part of the team if you're gonna keep doing this. And he's going, I'm your dad, well, I'll fucking show you. Because he's a bit like that, isn't he? He's a bit of a child when he doesn't get his own way. And I feel like that's what's happened. Like he's been told to not be part of it because you're going around fucking kicking off with everybody on camera. It's the Tyson Fury show, unfortunately, not the John Fury show. And he's just took it the wrong way. And it's weird. And to go on about Sugar Hill the way he did, I mean, he absolutely transformed Tyson after Ben Davison. Um, Gave him that Kronk style. You know what I mean? Emmanuel, he learned from Emmanuel. Like, who are you to sit there and
Yeah.
act like you were any better? So I've lost a lot of love towards John Fury. I used to find him funny and that, but I've gone off him so much, and to just come out and attack his son in the lead up to the fight, it's all just been about John Fury this entire fight. And if you were so bothered, why didn't you say anything when it was initially announced? But he was
Yeah.
happy to come. He was happy to come in part of the media circus at the time.
Well, he brought a cameraman, didn't he? With him, didn't he? He brought a cameraman with him. Where's Carl Froch? Where's this, that, and the other? You know, that made it a John Fury show. He was stood 8 feet away from Carl Froch. You know, he was screaming, "Where is he?" It was his son's comeback
How can
fight.
you not? Yeah, you couldn't see him on that massive
Yeah.
podium that's lit up.
You know what I mean? Like it just leaves a bit of a sour taste in his mouth. He says that he's never took any money from Tyson. Like Tyson's tens and tens and tens of millions of pounds. I'm quite sure that he would have took care of his family and his family's family and whatever else. But yeah, Fury will be John Fury. Staying in the heavyweight division because the news that I'm picking at to close out is centered around the heavyweight division. Jared Anderson, the American heavyweight, stopped by Martin Bacoli. He looks to be signing with Queensbury, possibly fighting Solomon Dakers on the Fabio Wardley, Daniel Dubois undercard in Manchester on May 9th. Yeah, interesting for Queensbury. You know, they're stacking up those heavyweights over there with a Coley,
Yeah, they're out there, isn't it?
You know, Jared Anderson linking up, I think it's a good move.
Yeah. I think. Do you know what? I think Frank's got it nailed on with the heavyweights. I think when it comes to heavyweight boxing, Frank is the man in the boxing scene, and that's a really good signing because I didn't think Top Rank would just let Jared go so easily. I know he had the loss to Bacola, but I don't think that was a loss where you went right. Yeah, his career's over. It was more of a loss of right, back to the drawing board. You're not quite ready to step up for them world titles yet because people forget he's still young.
Yeah.
No, he's still a very young man in the heavyweight game.
And even younger for heavyweights, even younger for heavyweights. He was
Yeah,
like
yeah,
23, 24, you know?
yeah. So he's still got another 6 years before you really, you could be saying right, he's in his peak. So strange move from Top Rank to let him go, but a good piece of business from Frank, and I think the Solomon fight's a good fight for him to get back into the mix with as well.
Yeah, definitely. We look forward to a potential Jared Anderson in the UK as well and in Manchester. So hopefully we get a couple of words with him, maybe at a press conference or a weigh-in or whatnot. It'd be good to get hold of Big Baby, Jared Anderson. Dave Allen potentially fighting Zhilei Zhang, and that being on a Queensbury show as well. I know the buddies, Frank and Eddie now, and they're working together. But Dave Allen is a ticket seller. He's a headline fighter in a stable of fighters there at Matchroom where there's few and far between, domestic headline fighters. He's just lost Conor Ben. Anthony Joshua was on the comeback trail. Dave Allen, whilst not world class, European class, he's a ticket seller, and he comes to fight if you let him go over to Queensbury to fight Zhilei Zhang in a fight that he starts a massive underdog for, in my opinion, it just baffles me the career path. We all love
I
Dave
don't.
Allen.
The Dave Allen career path is just wild, and I think at this stage it's just about money now, and it just getting a payday for him, and then fair play, Zhang's the payday. But I think that's a dangerous fight for him as well. But it's one where he
You
probably
think
get it.
think Zhang's more dangerous than Aslanbek Makhmudov? Just to cut you off there, but which do you think is more dangerous for an opponent?
I think Zhang hits him a lot more times than
Harder.
yeah, and harder, 100%. The only difference is Zhang's got 4 rounds in him, and
Yeah.
if it goes past 4 rounds, Dave Allen might have a puncher's chance
So do you think that's
because
the kind of fight where Dave just kind of tries sits on his chest, just lets him go to the body, slows the big man
tries to, but
down?
I think Zhang's too good and too clever to let. Zhang's too good and too clever to know that that's all you're going to be able to do in these first few rounds, and he'll just pick him off. I think he'll pick him off and hurt him. The thing with Dave Allen is we've never really seen him get badly hurt and stopped. So if he can somehow get through 4 rounds with Zhilei Zhang, then he might actually win on the fact that Zhilei Zhang's just so old and so big. But in terms of ability, Zhang, I think personally, Zhang could pick him off for
Yeah.
3-4 rounds at ease. I don't think it's a fight he don't really need to take. He don't need to be putting that on himself. But money talks, don't it? At the end of the
Again,
day.
yeah, like obviously money talks, as you say, but I guess it comes down to motivation. There was talk of him going for a British title, and we've seen Jamie TKV against Richard Riakpo get announced for the Tyson Fury Makhmudov card. Is it maybe a question of a lack of ambition or desire, maybe not ambition, desire, that Dave Allen is fighting for money, and the money that he'll get for a British title fight isn't tickling his fancy as much as the
Yeah,
dangerous
it's got
fight
yeah,
with a Makhmudov or with a Zhilei Zhang, which will be a headline fight. That's what gets his juices flowing. Yeah, he'd love to win the British title, but he just can't get himself going for it because we know Dave Allen he's a mad character, and we all like I say we love
yeah.
him, but he's infuriating and lovable in equal measure. And maybe he just can't get his juices flowing for a Jamie TKV fight, which again, by no means, people are talking like he once he beat Johnny Fisher, he'd just go and beat Jamie TKV if he decided to. But Jamie TKV beat Fraser Clark, and Fraser Clark stopped Dave Allen on the still, horses for
Yeah, of course.
courses.
Yeah, yeah.
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe the juices just don't get flowing for a British title fight because the money's not
But
there, and he
it,
needs
that's
a danger
why
fight.
that's why I think a lot of it just has to come down to money at this point because it's got to be to go and put yourself in. Or I think a harder fight against Zhang because you're not going to get anything on the back of that. You're not going to get a world title opportunity on the back of beating Zhilei Zhang. So where is the motivation apart from money? Because I saw the other fight was Hrgovic, and the other potential opponent could have been Hrgovic.
Yeah.
That's even worse than Zhang.
Yeah, it is
That's
because
a well
that's going to
worse
be
fight to
12
take.
rounds of severe punishment as opposed to four really dangerous rounds. Like,
Yeah.
Hrgovic's going to
So
stay with him.
I don't get because it would be nice for Dave Allen to win a trophy because he's been in the game, yeah, a
Yeah.
trophy, a belt because he's been in the game for so long. But at this point, no, I don't think he's going to win one, is he? Because it looks like it's money or bust. But to be
But,
fair, he's been in the game that long. He needs to earn the money, doesn't he? Because
but I
he's
tell
had
you
some
what, mate,
punishing
my
fights.
worry is, as a human being, my worry is if Dave Allen gets one of these big wins, as Zhilei Zhang, Makhmudov last time out, what comes after that? There was talk of Joseph Parker previously. That's obviously not going to happen. But if he beats Zhilei Zhang or Filip Hrgovic, next minute people will be saying, you know what, he's the test for Moses Itauma. And I don't want to see that. I really don't want to
No.
see that. But that's the way it'll go. That's the way it'll go. He gets one of these big wins, and it'll be he's an anti-Joshua comeback opponent, or he's a Moses Itauma stepping stone. Nah, that's the worry.
Yeah,
Like when he thought he was going to beat David Price, it was going to be Povetkin next. Like
yeah.
save the man for himself.
Yeah, because he's unfortunately he's a punch bag for these bigger, harder hitting heavyweights, isn't he? Like the people that are above him in the rankings. No disrespect to Dave Allen, but he ends up turning out to be a punching bag for them when he gets in there with them, and that's a credit to his durability and his
Yeah,
toughness. But at the same time, like you said, as a human being, like it's a bit like mate, like your health's your wealth at the same time. You're making a load of money, but mate, you've been in with the biggest hitters in the heavyweight division and you've never been knocked out. So I wouldn't want to see what your brain looks like,
yeah.
and you don't want to be going in with you Zhang the Hrgovic's and
If
but
maybe not the most aesthetically pleasing fight, but if we're trying to keep fighters safe and getting paid, Dave Allen against Dillian White would make a lot of sense at this point.
yeah, or Joe Joyce. I think
Yeah,
one of them two, and that would sell well because it's a
yeah.
British fight.
You know,
It
when
would
we talk
tune in
about
for it.
Chisora and Wilder making sense because of the stages of the careers and what they've achieved, and it's a cash out fight, if you like. Dave Allen, Dillian White, and Dave Allen, Joyce, they have that same kind of.
Yeah,
Okay, you
yeah,
guys are in the same mix together there. This makes sense. We're not putting you in with a monstrous puncher like Anthony Joshua. We're not putting you in with a young, undefeated lion, Moses Itauma, that's steamrolling everybody. Let's make a bit of sense here. Let's make business sense and let's make health sense. Yeah,
yeah,
Dillian White, Dave Allen, Joe Joyce, put them in a little trifecta and let them do the thing. But yeah, I always worry about the what's next for Dave Allen. If he gets the big win, what comes after that? That's the worry.
yeah. And I just don't want to keep seeing him take too much punishment, man, because he's a young man. He's a young man in a, you know what I mean, man. When he does retire, he's only got a few years left in him. He'll be 35, 36, and I wouldn't want to see him a little later years of his life be absolutely squandered from taking too many punches to the head.
Yeah, agreed, agreed. But yeah, shout out to Dave Allen, man. He's a good guy and he's a
No,
solid.
he is a good guy. We're not shitting on your day. We love you.
Yeah, exactly. That's why we're saying the things we're saying because we do love you. But Jamie, that brings us nicely to the end of the podcast. Anything you want to get off your chest before we finish? We covered a lot there.
No, no, no. We pretty much. I wanted to touch upon the Dave Allen thing, so I'm glad you brought it up, mate.
Absolutely. But yeah, big up Jamie. Guys, thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Make sure you hit that like button, that follow button, that notification so you don't miss a video dropping on SimBoxx. We'll be down at the presser or the weigh-in or maybe both for the Magnificent Seven card this week in Manchester. So plenty of content to come from that. We've got an interview with Denzel Bentley available on the YouTube channel now and also with Alex Murthy. So they're two great chats to listen to. But I appreciate you consuming our content as always. Leave us any feedback in the comments. I've been Luke, he's been Jamie, and I will see you on episode 21 next week.
Boom.